Hello, this is Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, and this is my focus on video for what should have happened in the last 3 Star Wars movies. This is gonna be the first time I've ever done a focus on video that wasn't about MLP, so since it's May the 4th, that I wanted to do a video about what I think the last 3 movies should have been about. I do have to say, if you like the last 3 movies, okay, that's fine, but without making this a big long thing, and besides, there's bazillions of videos on the internet beating on the last 3 movies, but I think most people agree that the last 3 movies were pretty much a retelling of the original trilogy, which is lame. So that's why I want to do this video about what I think the last movies should have been about. What happens next? And frankly, that didn't happen. What happened is they hit the reset button, we blew away the New Republic, we brought the Empire back, and now we're basically back where we started at the end of A New Hope. So that honestly wasn't as interesting. And I think, what happens next is a far more interesting question, particularly because the Empire was not defeated at Return of the Jedi. I know that there are books and stories about what happens at the end of Return of the Jedi. Unfortunately, I have not really read them, so nah. Okay, yeah, they blew up the Death Star, the Emperor's dead, they lost this huge fleet, but the rest of the Empire's still out there. And in some ways, the really short answers to what should the last 3 movies been about? It should have been about the kind of plot that was in Star Wars Squadrons, which was essentially, what happens next? That speech at the very beginning of the game is very good. It's the Empire's goal is to try to knock us over before we get our footing. That's what this should have been about. It should have been about, okay, the rebellion is trying to establish a footing. They're trying to, establish control through establishing the government, rebuilding the Senate, positioning their fleet so that the systems don't all start just fighting with each other and start a whole new civil war. And the Empire's goal is to, in a way, survive, decide how are we going to proceed now. And ultimately their best way to proceed is to basically cause as much trouble for the New Republic as possible so that it collapses under its own weight. And then they can either take advantage of the situation and attack them head on, or go into the systems that is like, hey, look, the New Republic, look what a terrible job they did. You know what? I know you don't like us, but the New Republic completely failed to, bring peace to the galaxy, but we won't. So what I think the last 3 movies should have been about is essentially what happens next, but what it also is about is the utter defeat of the Empire. When you break it down, the prequel trilogy was about the Empire being created, the original trilogy was about the Empire being overthrown. What the third part should have been about is the Empire's utter defeat. I mean, this is kind of like what happened in World War II with the Russians and Nazi Germany. The Nazis initially attack Russia, go almost all the way to their capital. The Russians managed to turn it around and push Nazi Germany out of their territory. And of course, they could have said, okay, we pushed them out of our territory, we don't have to do anything. But no, they went all the way into Nazi Germany, all the way to the capital, and forced their surrender. And that's ultimately what ended the war. Because, if they had just stopped after pushing out Nazi Germany, Nazi Germany could have rebuilt their military and come back and attack them again. Return of the Jedi is kind of that point of, okay, they pushed the Nazis out. That's kind of where Return of the Jedi ends. So that's what the last 3 movies, in a lot of ways, should have been about. It should have been about, okay, we're going to go into those areas where the Imperials have retreated to. They're probably initially too far for the New Republic to deal with, but now that they have a footing, they have to at some point go after them. But I think the long story short is that the Empire would most likely strike back first before the New Republic was truly ready to strike the Empire. I just had a thought, it's like the utter defeat would have been capturing Grand Admiral Thrawn. That would be the end game, I think, for the Empire, if, Grand Admiral Thrawn was finally captured once and for all. That would force the surrender of the remaining Imperials. Because, nobody has ever truly ended a war that didn't end with some kind of peace treaty or surrender order. Because the only other alternative is to go and basically, destroy all the Star Destroyers and round up every single Stormtrooper, and that would be difficult and messy, shall we say. That, I envisioned, the very last thing is, okay, there's a surrender order signed by, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and capture all the Star Destroyers, we'll get all the Stormtroopers, make them turn in their armor, their weapons, and say, okay, just go. That was the sort of thing that I kind of would have liked to have seen more. How do we utterly defeat the Empire? So that's why ultimately I was disappointed by the last 3 movies, because again. That did not happen. That, yeah, we just retold the original trilogy. So I hope you've had a good May the 4th, and may the Force be with you. Always. And as always, thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing, and until next time, this is Blue Star. Stay strong and pony on. Blue Star out.